Aki Fox, welcome to EntertainmentWise. What attracted you to the script of Emperor?
Always starts with the script with me, and you know, I read the script and was really moved by it, and also felt like, you know, I really knew very little about this moment in time. You know, most of my consciousness about World War II and has to do with Europe and what was going on in Germany and Hitler and the Holocaust and all, you know, the horror of that. And so I felt like this was a moment in the Japanese-American struggle, the whole Pacific and South Pacific campaign that I knew very little about, and this moment in time is was so crucial in sort of defining what that region was going to become, and so I was really compelled to be a part of it.
Great cast, Tommy Lee Jones, amazing actors to work with. Do you sort of pull different stuff when you work with different actors?
Yeah, I think that you always, yes, I think that's part of the joy of collaborating and trying to tell a story, is that you, and I really do love working with actors, and just the whole cast. I mean, working with the Japanese actors in this film was just absolutely incredible. You know, God, a lot of them didn't really speak great English, and so they're trying to speak and work in a language that's not their own, and huge, very sort of important pieces of dialogue, and I just couldn't believe how well they handled that. And I've always felt that the Japanese have a really interesting style of acting, which I think comes from their theatrical traditions. There's a stillness and a real strength. I had an amazing experience working with all the actors on this film.
What's the big difference between working on a huge television series like Lost to working on a film like Emperor? Is it very tangible, sort of different on set, or is it quite similar?
Very similar on set, although you always have more time in film than you have in television. But for me, the big difference, and the reason why that I'm sort of focused on doing theater and film now rather than television, is just that I have more control over when I'm working and when I'm not, you know. I've taken, Emperor was the last project that I've done, and so I've taken the last almost a year and a half off. I haven't worked other than going out and sort of supporting the films that I've had coming out. If I were on a huge television show during that period of time, I wouldn't have had that luxury. I mean, I would have, you know, they would have told me when it was time to report, and I would have worked on that show for 8 months, and then I would have been able to take a little break and then had to do it again. And so for me, I'm at a stage in my life where that's really important to me. That's sort of the overriding guiding principle, is that I want to be able to choose when I'm working and when I'm not.
World War Z, amazing. What was it like working with Brad Pitt?
That was an interesting experience, just in that I was largely cut out of the film. I mean, the movie was changed radically. The whole second half of the film was reshot and recut. But I had a fantastic time working on it. Mark Forster is a really good friend of mine.
No, when you like realised that most of your scenes are on the cutting floor?
No, not really. I mean, it was always sort of like, I took that role because of Mark Forster, who's a really good friend of mine. I took it because there was the potential that if the film was a trilogy, that I would be sort of in the second and third film become like a real sort of head-to-head antagonist with Brad Pitt. But ultimately, I had a great time working on it, and it wasn't really terribly important to me how that whole thing turned out.
You bulked up enormously in the past. Would you ever go really extreme for future movie roles? Would you ever put on weight?
I would do what the role requires. I mean, for Alex Cross, I lost like 40 pounds, and
you were in fighting form.
Yeah, that was a very extreme experience, actually. But I learned a lot from that. But if I was going to play a role that required me to put on 40, yeah. I mean, you know, it'd be a little bit tougher, just that I'm pretty vain, and I'd be like, huh, that sucks. And then there would also be it would be the bummer part of like having to come up against the end of making that and going like, dude, you gotta lose 40 pounds now, and that would be a bummer.
Get to the gym, you fatty.
But no, I would do what the role requires. I mean, that's always part of the fun of being an actor is you sort of like have this idea in your head of what you think it requires, and then you try to go make that.
Matthew, it's been a pleasure chatting. Thank you.
Thank you.